Hello and welcome to Zero Hanger TV, where today we're going to be looking at the top names set to hit free agency over the next week. The signing window officially opens on Friday and will run for 7 days. And there's plenty of movement set to come, and to break down some of the biggest movers with me is AFL reporter Frank Seal. Frank, how are you, mate?
Good, thank you, Mitch. How are you?
I'm well. We've got 10 names, probably the 10 biggest names for free agency for this coming off season. And as mentioned, we've got a 7-day window set to open from Friday morning, and plenty of deals potentially dropping from the first day as well. Likely a break over the weekend. We don't usually see too much happen on Saturdays, Sundays, particularly with a lot of clubs and list managers and recruiters covering the draft combine this weekend as well. So should likely pick up back on Monday again when the trade period also opens. But we'll preview some of the moves that we definitely know are happening, some that potentially are happening, some who still have their future up in the air a little bit as they enter the off-season, and then just a few more details on what we can expect from free agency ahead of the trade period as well. And the first name off the bat is Josh Battle. So St Kilda to Hawthorn, that deal's pretty much been locked in for about a month now. Both clubs have confirmed Battle's request to land at Hawthorn, an unrestricted free agent, which has made it quite hard for St Kilda, who have worked quite hard to actually retain him and offered him a pretty solid deal from what it sounds like. But he's keen to join his boyhood club Hawthorn in what is going to be one of two big additions to Sam Mitchell's backline, with Tom Barrass also set to join from West Coast. So they're those kind of pieces that a club wanting to contend next year is looking to add to, and the Hawks have, I guess, probably ticked this one off as a massive coup for them to get Battle ahead of St Kilda, and with some talk even being that the Saints deal might have been even better than the Hawks'. Yeah,
so alongside Barrass, if he comes as well, that makes Hawthorn a very scary proposition next year. They'll suddenly have one of the best defensive groups in the comp, I reckon, because they'll have Barrass, Sicily, Battle, Scrimshaw, Hardwick, Weddle, Impey. Half a team can roll down there anyway, so it's how it works at Hawthorn. And he's a better player than some may think. I reckon Battle finished third in the best and fairest at St Kilda, obviously. Rock solid interceptor. He's a strong marking player and can also roll forward, which fits that sort of Hawthorn mould with that player that they're bringing up these days. And he's a 26-year-old, so his best footy's probably still ahead of him. And he should get, but regardless, you should get at least another 5 years of quality production out of him. So big win for Hawthorn there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's going to be quite interesting to see. I think Barrass will get that star opposition forward. Guy, Battle probably, I think, slots into that second role. Does Sam Frost start, and is James Sicily playing forward? So there's a few moving magnets for Sam Mitchell to sort, but nevertheless, they're going to have one of the most rock-solid backlines. On the flip side of this move, though, is St Kilda and what compensation they'll get, and this is probably going to be one of the biggest talking points over the next week. I think from the new deal or the new CBA that the deal certainly seems like it's quite a lucrative one, and it certainly is. But with this new CBA increase, does that mean that the Saints net first or band 1 compensation, which would be, I think, pick 8. Currently they have pick 7, so it falls after their first selection at pick 8. It's either that or end of first round selection, which is pick 21. Now, obviously, that's a massive discrepancy in what is a very strong draft class. So the Saints will be, I think, very satisfied if they can get pick 8 in return for Josh Battle. If they get pick 21, certainly not as, but I feel like that's probably a fairer maybe return. But like you said, third in the best and fairest. No, certainly not. They'll be pushing for pick 8. And I think it's those clubs behind them that will be a bit annoyed with an extra spot back in the draft. But he's likely the only one that will probably cost a band 1 compensation. So any other clubs that are behind the Saints shouldn't be expecting too many other moves back from free agency. Moving on, and a club that's set to shape a large part of the off-season is GWS, with a number of players looking to land elsewhere, and 3 of them are free agents, all unrestricted, all senior players at GWS, and all I think would probably decide to from the club's point of view, to be sticking around for another year. But the first we'll touch on is Isaac Cumming, whose move to Adelaide will be confirmed over the next week. Both parties have agreed to that. And as an unrestricted free agent, there's not much that the Giants could do to stop Cumming, who has spent some time in South Australia, has family there, and is seeking a move to the Crows, and will add some nice outside polish.
Yeah, so unlike some of the other potentially outgoing Giants, he's not definitively seeking more opportunity, but he'll get it regardless at the Crows. He'll become their number 1 winger straight away, pretty much. And since the Crows don't boast a lot of outside talent, Jordan Dawson plays in the midfield. The rest of their midfielders are more inside-based players. But I like a bit like Harry Perryman we're about to talk about. He's played his best seasons, Isaac Cumming, in 2021, 2022 and sort of declined a bit since then. Averaged 23 disposals, polled a few Brownlow votes in those seasons. But his role on the side has gradually declined ever since. That emergence of Tom Green to the midfielders made some of the other midfielders in the Giants roll out to the outside position. So it's been a struggle for him. And he only played 6 games last year. So he's also 26 years old. So hopefully his best footy's ahead of him. And a change of scenery could spell a breakout year for him.
Yeah, I think it's a nice addition for the Crows. Shouldn't be costing too much. Definitely won't cost them anything draft capital wise.
Yep.
And with Brodie Smith and he fell out of the side this year, and with his age, he'll be a nice kind of successor for that role at whether it's half back or up on the wing. Obviously they'll get Wayne Miller back from injury early into the next season. So plenty of running options for Matthew Nicks, which I think he lacked a little bit, as you mentioned, on the outskirts of that engine room. Looking to the next Giant on his way out the door is Nick Haynes. So the club's confirmed that he's set to move and return to Victoria, while a landing spot hasn't been confirmed from either the club or his destination. All signs suggest it's going to be Carlton. He's having met with them, and a pretty straightforward deal. And this could be one of the first that get done as early as Friday. Carlton certainly needed some key defensive depth. Nick Haynes, some great experience, just couldn't quite break into a backline that, to be fair, is home to Sam Taylor, Jack Buckley, Connor Iden, and Lekalia also came along quite nicely this season as well. So I think this is a great move for both parties. Haynes certainly is AFL caliber. Carlton definitely need another intercept option to support Jacob Wiedering. And at the same time, they won't have to give up any picks to secure him. So I think it's a smart move from the Blues.
It's a good fit at Carlton if he can stay healthy, and that's always a risk when you play for the Blues. But they obviously need a mainstay defender who they can rely on. Brody Kemp's been thrown around a bit, played a bit forward. Was actually pretty good forward. Caleb Marchbank can't stay on the track. Lewis Young is a bit on and off behind Wiedering in that role. Haynes, clearly not as good as when he signed that lucrative deal, back in his All-Australian days from like 2018 to 2021. But he came into the side in 2024 again and put up similar numbers to his All-Australian years. Obviously wasn't as good, but that's the 17 disposals, 7 marks a game from those 8 games that he played this year. So it's a wait and see to see how it rolls there, but it could be a huge win for Carlton if it works.
Absolutely. And then rolling into the third Giant who will move via free agency. Again, Harry Perryman leaving as an unrestricted free agent, while no landing spots being confirmed from the Giants or another club. Collingwood seems to be the one that's set to pick him up as early as Friday. You'd think, with some of the suggestions around a pretty sizable deal for him, that the Giants could net maybe end of first round compensation, which would be, again, pick 21, depending on how early that deal lands. And that's I think a little bit of that race as well. But I think a nice addition for the Magpies, a player who could probably play a bit more midfield time than what he's been able to at GWS, get some good opportunity at a pretty big club, and again, a boyhood club that he supported. So this is, I think, again, one that the Giants won't necessarily miss. I think they did play really hard to try and keep him, but at the same time, Collingwood would be rapt to land his signature. Yeah,
so clearly set for great opportunity at Collingwood, which he's been looking for, and for a team that needs younger talent as well. The Tom Mitchell and Scott Pendlebury clearly on the decline. Been starved of the sort of spotlight at GWS. He was a mainstay player. He's been a mainstay player for a lot of his career there, but obviously not in the role he wants. A bit like Cumming before, or Haynes before, where he was more in favour in 2021. Around that period, he averaged 22 disposals in that season, and he's gradually dropped since to around 18 touches a game in 2024. So seeking a change is understandable. He's also 26, so he's primed to potentially have that breakout season at a new club. He'll be great support for Nick Dacos. Takes load off Jack Crisp, who's nearly 30, and Jordan De Goey, who hates playing a full year, staying healthy. You just hope he doesn't follow that sort of Jacob Hopper path that he's gone down at Richmond. But we'll see how it goes at Collingwood.
Yeah, so I think across the three of Cumming, Haynes, Perryman might net them the best draft compensation. Cumming certainly would be a pretty nice pick, and then I wouldn't have thought Haynes' contract to Carlton's going to be blowing anyone out of the water, so probably a late pick in return for them. Rolling in to one that has a bit of mystery around it is Jack Graham's future, and whether he stays as a Tiger or heads over to West Coast, who is expected to meet this year per reports. obviously the Tigers are dealing with a number of players wanting to move clubs. And Graham is one that they're certainly working hard to keep. But at the same time, with ex-assistant Andrew McQualter now at West Coast, best mate Liam Baker potentially also heading to the Eagles, there is some pretty strong pull for Jack Graham. You probably would have mentioned 12 months ago that he's a player that might have sought after better opportunities elsewhere, a more senior role. But you think with Baker, Bolton, and I guess Rioli to an extent, all moving on, that he certainly would have a pretty sizable role under Adam Muse next year. In saying that, though, maybe a fresh start for him might be pretty good, and where he'll definitely get some midfield minutes, playing under Andrew McQualter and still playing alongside Liam Baker. Yep. So it's a pretty interesting move with whether he weighs up Richmond or West Coast. Do you have a probably preferred landing spot for Jack Graham?
Yeah, so with McQualter and Baker, it looks like the Eagles are the hope, at least for Graham, potentially. He provides a good defensive presence in that midfield if you were to go to West Coast to back up the sort of Harley Reid offensive X factor. Doesn't seem to be seeking greater opportunity, because he probably wouldn't break into the starting trio that they've got at West Coast with Reid, Elliott, Yeo, Tim Kelly, probably just behind there. But with the recent Tim Kelly rumours, who knows? We'll see what happens there. But he's got that premiership experience and he's still pretty young. He's also 26. And he's obviously got a good relationship with McQualter, so you'd assume that they'd sort of formulate a plan for what his role looks like to make it, to satisfy all involved.
And just speaking on West Coast, another player who's an unrestricted free agent, yet to learn their future, is Josh Rotham, medium-sized defender at the Eagles, who is without a deal for 2025. Looks like he's been made to wait a little bit and just kind of tread water until the off-season finishes. Still could find a home over the next week, but if nothing arises and if West Coast don't offer him anything, then a club could pounce via delisted free agency. So that's another option for him as well. And Essendon are one who have been linked. Maybe that comes if Jayden Laverde might look elsewhere, but at the same time, I think Rotham might be left to wait as West Coast look to get their defensive options in order. Tom Cleary, one that's been mentioned as potential addition for them, but they are losing Tom Barrass. So a bit of a smaller option, but Rotham, I think he'd be worthy on an AFL list. I think West Coast certainly still needs some of these experienced players, but Essendon could use some of that depth as well. Yeah,
it looks like the Bombers are the most interested if any club were to sort of try and pounce on him. They'd just hope he provides some added defensive stability there. They often look shaky in defence, relying on Ben Mackay and Jayden Laverde down there. He won't solve that, but hopefully add something, being an 8-year defensive veteran. We'd have to wait and see what West Coast's move is, and then that's one to watch for the off-season.
Yeah, I think from the Essendon point of view, when you look at Jordan Ridley, his injury concerns, Zach Reid as well struggles to get on the park, so he's probably just a more durable option who's got experience, who can come into that back line, and they've got someone like Lewis Hayes waiting in the wings, so maybe they just want that to bridge that gap a little. For West Coast, it might not be the worst thing if he departs and they get a late draft pick back, because they do need some extra draft points to match a bid for Malachi Champion, who's an NGA product of theirs and would likely I think get a bid quite late into the draft piece, but they've only got one pick after their second rounder, and I wouldn't suspect a bid for him comes in that early bracket. So they need to stock some of those picks. They'll get something for Jack Darling, but they might need a little bit more, and I don't think too many clubs want to miss out on a couple of extra picks for this year's draft as well. So Josh Rotham certainly one to watch over the next week. Another, when we're talking about, I guess, key defensive options, you can probably play anywhere, Elliott, Himmelberg, but whether that's as a ruck, as a forward, or as a key defender, set to, by all signs, suggesting that he'll sign with Gold Coast as maybe more of a depth option for them. Unrestricted free agent, so he'll easily be able to walk to Gold Coast, who lose Jack Lukosius, who again could probably play a couple of roles. Whether he has the same kind of, or whether the Suns have the same reliance on someone like Himmelberg is doubtful. But again, he can be more of maybe a backup option with Jed Walter still developing. Ben King is getting full seasons under his belt, but not always the case. And then Ethan Reid as well, another one that's still developing as a key position talent. Yeah.
So it looks like the Suns, and we don't know what his opportunity looks like. As you said, they're preparing to lose Lukosius, but he was struggling to remain as a mainstay in the side anyway. He won't be in their future ruck plans because they've got Witt still there, and Ned Moyle looks like he's going to be taking the reins there. Jed Walter looks like he'll be the next man up forward, and Ben King's obviously still there, and Mac Andrew is still there and may take that role up forward as well. And they'll hope to blood Ethan Reid eventually as well. So we're not sure how much opportunity he'll get after not getting much at Adelaide, which is sort of almost a similar mix of key position players. But he's about to enter his 8th season without a breakout campaign or even sort of moment to speak of. So maybe a fresh start could open the door for that for Himmelberg.
Yeah, quite an interesting one. But I think, again, just a nice depth option, not going to cost much for the Suns. Yeah. And we thought what they would get out of someone like Levi Casbolt. Comes in, and when they need someone to fill a role, they can rely on experience rather than an untried option. So, yeah, Himmelberg returning to Queensland, certainly one that looks likely to unfold over the next week. Rolling on more key position talent, Adam Tomlinson, still a free agent at Melbourne. I thought, probably midway through the season when he got another look that he was certainly playing himself into a new deal. It doesn't seem to be the case in the D's eyes. Certainly preferring Tom McDonald alongside Jake Lever and Stephen May, but I'd be shocked if he's not on an AFL list somewhere, just given his pedigree. Doesn't want to be a fringe asset, but I think he's certainly a valuable one with his ability to either be an intercept option or a lockdown option on key defenders. Big body player. And potentially, on the lookout for his third club. Any potential landing spots, or how do you kind of see the Adam Tomlinson situation?
Well, he's been starved of a good run for all 5 years that he's been at Melbourne, had more of a run at GWS. Even though, despite being a pretty well-regarded intercepting or defensive tall, looks like St Kilda might be a spot that potential for 2025, which would be an ideal fit as they prepare to lose Josh Battle. And he could shine under Ross Lyon's defensive scheme, hopefully becoming that next best defender behind Wilkie. Maybe Dougal Howard, we'll see. But unfortunately, he doesn't have long to go in his career. He's 31 years old and plays a pretty demanding role on his body. So unlikely he'll be competing for premierships or anything at St Kilda with the time he has left, but still be a win for both parties if that were to work out.
Yeah, I like the St Kilda move for him. And as you mentioned, there's a void there. The thing with the Saints, they'll have to walk a bit of a tightrope here, is that if they sign a free agent, it probably dilutes their compensation for Battle a little bit. So anything for them, they can maybe try and just get him as a delisted free agent. If Melbourne aren't offering him a new deal, he gets cut and then can go there with no cost for the Saints. What they also could do is just offer the Demons a late draft pick and just trade for Adam Tomlinson instead. But like I said, I like the idea. It's just how they get Tomlinson on their books without kind of ruining that Josh Battle compensation is certainly something to consider for St Kilda, who have another free agent of their own that they might be losing in Tim Membrey. Key forward, great stalwart for the club. And I think that, if there isn't a landing spot out there for him, that he probably would stay at St Kilda. But for any club that's in the window that needs some key forward depth, or if you're like a North Melbourne who went after going after Jack Darling, you just want some experience for your younger forwards, I think he's a great option.
Yeah, and there's suddenly a lot of value attached to Tim Membrey after the back half of 2024. That game against West Coast, kicked 5 goals, had 23 touches. That's the best game of his career. And I don't think it's really close either. It's like very elite game, that one. North Melbourne flagged some interest in him recently, but might go for Jack Darling instead. Melbourne and Collingwood are the other two that have declared interest reportedly, which are two very interesting prospects. Both are dying for a reliable key forward, and both would think that that's the difference between them winning a flag maybe next year. Maybe not Melbourne during their crisis that they're going through, but who knows what they're thinking. But Collingwood have tried their luck with Mason Cox, Billy Frampton, Reef McGuinness. None have worked as that key forward option. They've had to throw Jeremy Howe forward regularly at times. So it's a huge addition if Collingwood can add him. But we'll see if the Saints throw something attractive his way to keep him on their list.
Yeah, I don't mind the Pies move. Obviously, like my check is not quite that tall, and neither is Membrey either. But if they can get maybe those two guys around Dan McStay, then they might just have the needed pieces. Exactly right. Rounding out our top 10, and in no particular order as well, it's hard to leave Patrick Dangerfield off the top 10 free agents yet to decide their futures. Obviously, all signs suggest he'll be at Cardinia Park next year. I guess the big probably talking point around his future is, if you're Geelong, do you offer him a 1-year deal? Or if you're Patrick Dangerfield, who's likely asking for a 2-year deal, would you be happy to cut that down to 1, or should the Cats be rising up to 2? Yeah. It's a difficult one. Obviously, he had some struggles last couple of seasons with some soft tissue injuries. This year, similar early on, managed to get his body a bit more fit, but some long seasons. Geelong are great at managing their players, but and he's your captain. But Yeah, I don't know. I think there is an option there for a 2-year deal for him. He's not going to be on the most amount of money you wouldn't have thought anymore. And he's still a great service, great player for them. And across their finals was pretty key. So I'm probably swaying towards a 2-year deal. I think if I was the club, I'd be open to that. Obviously, the monetary side of things is also going to be a pretty big factor, but I wouldn't think that if Dangerfield's kept to 12 games in the 2026 season that he's going to be ruining your salary cap all too much or putting you in too much of a vice there. So that's what I see. What do you think?
Well, we were going through before about the teams that could use an explosive midfielder for a potential 1-year flag run. It probably won't be happening, but
No.
I've whittled down to Collingwood, Hawthorn and Melbourne.
That'd be sizable.
Probably won't happen. So 1 or 2 year deal is the question there. It'd be hard to deny him 2 years if he wants it and if he believes that he's got 24 months left in the tank. Geelong are typically conservative with their deals that they offer for players. And he plays a very demanding role and he's quite old now. But if any club could manage Dangerfield to work another 2 years into an already pretty ridiculous 337 game career, it's probably Geelong. They primed him unbelievably for that September run, even though it didn't quite work out. So we'll see if they can do it again as he hits 35 years old. But if they can, what an effort that would be.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out like anything that around what a 1-year deal to a 2-year deal might look like. No idea what he might be on for next year if he does re-sign. But you'd think, if he goes for $600K for one season, or if it's a 2-year deal, maybe it's $800K over 2 years. So averages out at $400, but he gets that extra year. So that's probably, I would like to think that the kind of bubble that they're working in, just given the type of player he is, he's their captain and still can play at quite a high level. So certainly an interesting one for the Cats and when that gets done, but I don't think Geelong fans have to be too nervous about him heading elsewhere or potentially retiring anytime soon. That will wrap up our free agency preview. Now coming up this week as well, we'll have a massive trade breakdown ahead of the trade periods opening on Monday. We're covering all 18 clubs, 1-minute wrap-ups on each club, so you can get your short little snippets to see what your club might be doing over the off-season. And obviously you can catch all the latest news, views and opinions on zerohanger.com.